Oh, wow. One person joined. Oh, two. Well, I guess that's better than nothing. I appreciate you for showing up anyway. I'm gonna go back to LinkedIn here and be like, hey, people, come on. This is so annoying. Thank you too. Thank you, you too. But everyone else not showing up yet, that's very frustrating. So I'm gonna have to manually message people. Just a moment here. Annoying. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your patience, you two. I need to. I appreciate. Oh, so we're not. Oh, three people now. 6 minutes late. Okay. I need to message everyone else because it seems like no one cares. Hold on a second. Oh, this is very frustrating. Oh, wow. 5 people, 10 minutes in. Oh, well, I guess I will start then. So sorry if I'm not in the best mood. Okay, so I'm gonna share my, there we go. Okay, so slideshow, there we go. Sorry about that, everyone. So I'm gonna introduce myself here. So my name is Kim Crawley. As of this presentation, I'm still a professor of enterprise cybersecurity at OPIT. I am the co-author of the Amazon bestselling The Pen Tester Blueprint. I'm the author of Cloud Penetration Testing, Hacker Culture A to Z, white papers for digital industry worlds at Siemens, Jump Cloud, and Nginx. There we go. You can see my bedhead now. And so I worked for Hack the Box and IO Active and other companies educating the public about pen testing and network vulnerabilities, SecOps, and enterprise cybersecurity in general. My whole body of work can be found on kimcrawley.com. I'm now doing some contract work for companies like Ceron Security. And I really want to emphasize here that I am available for a wide variety of cybersecurity research and writing roles. I'm going to be completely honest with all of you right now. Things are getting really, really desperate. I don't have like a secure paying professor job or anything like that. So please, 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 I beg of you, if you know anyone who could benefit from my research and writing, please pass on that information to me. Gen AI is really destroying people's lives right now. So I would really, really appreciate that. Thank you. And here we go again. So this presentation on one level is for free, but on another level, I would really, really, really appreciate it if you emailed me to arrange a free scan with the Travis Attack Surface Management solution. That would be a big help. That's really what the ulterior motive of this presentation is. Although I'm going to talk about network vulnerability scanners in a general sense and share a lot of knowledge, I would really, really, really appreciate it if you could talk to someone at your organization about a free scan. So please, please, please email me. Okay, someone else now. So as I'm saying, now that you're, oh, someone else, 12 minutes in. So please, 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 I beg of you, speak to someone in your organization, make note of my email address. Please at least ask me to hook up your organization with the free scan with the Travis Attack Service Management solution. I would really, really appreciate it. And then also, I am also doing Twitch streaming right now where I play a video game and I answer people's questions about enterprise cybersecurity. So this is another way that you can help me. Those are, you can see all the URLs there. You can see my Twitch URL. You can see my main URL for my portfolio, kimcrawley.com. You can see my Ko-Fi. I would really, really appreciate your support with this venture. It's kind of novel. I teach enterprise cybersecurity professionally at all levels, and I've consulted on enterprise cybersecurity for numerous clients through Iron Defense Corp as well. And so my knowledge is like really, really broad. The only current cert I have right now is a CISSP, but I've written professionally about penetration testing. I've written professionally about a bunch of defensive and administrative areas as well, red teams, blue teams. So the thing is, I play a game. So starting tomorrow, it's going to be Power Wash Simulator. And anyone who wants to ask me a question about enterprise cybersecurity pops in at least $10 into my Ko-fi, and I will answer that. And it's really, if you think about it, it's really inexpensive cybersecurity consulting. So yeah, that could be a lot of fun. So please check it out. I will be streaming 6 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time, 6 p.m. Friday Eastern time, and noon Sunday Eastern time. So I hope to see you there. It's really novel. It's like enterprise cybersecurity talk, but I'm also playing video games. All right, so we're just gonna define some terms so we're on the same page here. So you're probably going to be familiar with most of this terminology, but just so we are on the same page. So cloud is obviously a type of computer networking through the internet. I remember people describing it as the cloud is someone else's computer, but it's just like really sophisticated enterprise infrastructure, and these corporations, Amazon, Google, Alibaba, you name it, have absolutely massive amounts of infrastructure. And they use that infrastructure and they make that infrastructure available for other people to host their own computer networks. So that's generally what the cloud is. And you can deploy an enterprise computer network, but it's not on the machines on your premises, but it's actually in a data center far away. So it's been kind of groundbreaking technology for the past 20 years now. So then we got multi-cloud. So multi-cloud, a lot of enterprises have multi-cloud networks, which means that they have more than one cloud provider. And the different cloud provider segments of their network are connected together. So for instance, some enterprises have AWS and they have Azure, for instance. That would be a multi-cloud network. So then we got hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud incorporates some of the enterprise's on-premises servers. So sometimes enterprises need to deploy their network like that. For instance, there are some parts of the Sarbanes-Oxley that mandate that certain kinds of financial data be handled on premises, for instance. There are lots of different reasons why some enterprises need some servers to be on their premises and some to be on the cloud. So that's what a hybrid cloud network is. And yes, indeed, some people, some enterprises have hybrid multi-cloud networks, and those get really confusing. So as I said, on premises, otherwise known as on-prem, are servers that are on an enterprise's own premises, which means in their own buildings and not hosted by another company like Amazon, for instance. Machine learning is most of the AI that you would have heard about before all this ChatGPT mania. So it's the more kind of actually pragmatic way that a system that is called AI could learn from training material. So machine learning, when we talk about machine learning and compare it to what people call Gen AI, machine learning tends to run on much smaller data sets, like small and like very specialized. For instance, a bunch of data sets on like medical x-rays, so it wouldn't crawl the whole entire internet like GPT or whatever. It would be a limited focused data set uh, for a focused use case, and also usually be very closely human supervised. So much less environmentally destructive, much more practical and usable. And when you hear about AI being used in enterprise cybersecurity solutions, and it's actually a useful application of AI, they're talking about machine learning. So for instance, a lot of SIEM and a lot of threat intel and a lot of SOAR implementations use machine learning to find patterns in threat intel and stuff like that. So then we got the dreaded AI, Gen AI, which is basically killing everyone's livelihood and the planet and draining lakes and making another participant leave because they're a big fan of Gen AI, I guess. And if you're on LinkedIn, those of us who are being honest, you're probably hearing a lot of people talk about how their livelihoods are being threatened right now. And it's not that our livelihoods are being threatened because this technology can effectively replace us, but it's being used as an excuse to replace us. Like I got a deal with this Zoom interface having an AI companion button that I got to ignore. So I don't like that very much either. I know a lot of people are waiting for the bubble to burst. A lot of us can't wait for the bubble to burst. We need to pay our rent. But there are, I mean, to talk about just simply on a technological level, there are no useful technological applications for Gen AI in cybersecurity. Um, the large language model version of Gen AI, for instance, like ChatGPT, for example, there's no way that that could be usefully applied in cyber defense. It's just like mimicking word patterns of things that people say on the internet. There isn't really, and then the other types of Gen AI, like using images or video or audio, that's not useful for enterprise cybersecurity either. Now, where it is relevant, there we go. She's back. Now, what is relevant to cybersecurity as far as the dreaded torment nexus of Gen AI is concerned is that the cyber threat actors, so cyber criminals, are using it to produce more effective phishing, like deep fakes, videos that are very plausible depictions of real people that a target might know and trust. That's how Gen AI is relevant to cybersecurity as a cyber threat, not as a useful cyber tool. And then we got like attack surface management. So that's the kind of service that Travis ASM is obviously. And it incorporates the core functionality of network vulnerability scanning, but you're using it like usually you're using it on a more frequent basis to scan the entirety of your networks. And a lot of the times people choose to automate those scans. And it can be quite useful because some ASM solutions, such as Travis's, aren't very disruptive. So they're practical to run automated scans while the production network is being used. So that's a term that is starting to be used now for more automated, more feature-rich implementations of network vulnerability scanning. And attack surface management isn't just like automating network vulnerability scans, it's also visibility. So as I discussed, a lot of enterprises have multi-cloud networks and hybrid cloud networks. A lot of networks have a lot of shadow IT, which is something I'll get into a little later. A lot of networks are really, 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 really complex, spanning like a ton of different data centers all around the world, and also a bunch of shadow IT stuff, and maybe employees own laptops and phones and stuff like that. And it can get really, really complicated. And because of that, full visibility into an enterprise network is more challenging today than it has ever been. And a good attack surface management solution will be able to reveal the entirety of the enterprise network and employee laptops and their phones and any shadow IT that might exist or anything else like that, to have a full picture, because you cannot defend your computer network against a machine or a server that you're not aware of. So that's a very useful application for an ASM. So security maturity. So security maturity is a concept that is related to how advanced an enterprise's cyber defenses are. So there are a lot of security maturity models out there. I'm not going to get into the different security maturity models, but an organization with absolutely zero security maturity is one that has never hired any cybersecurity practitioners, has never even hired any IT practitioners, like network admins, for instance, who understand cybersecurity a bit. They've never considered cybersecurity in their policies or their practices or anything like that. They're starting from zero. So, whereas an organization with very, very high security maturity takes a long time to build. You can't go from zero security maturity to very high security maturity overnight. It usually takes years and years. So, an organization that has high security maturity has had all kinds of care taken towards cybersecurity for multiple consecutive years. They've had cybersecurity practitioners, both direct employees and maybe contractors, and maybe like a managed security services provider that has been providing various cybersecurity services to them. They have cybersecurity related policies and they enforce them. And if they have any of their own software, they have bug bounty programs and ways that people can report other like security vulnerabilities that they discover. And there's all kinds of stuff, and they are very, very advanced and cybersecurity minded. So that's the opposite extreme. So then network vulnerability scanning, which is mainly what this presentation is about. And it's about security vulnerabilities that exist in computer networks, in servers, in networking infrastructures such as firewalls or hubs. There's all kinds of ways that network vulnerabilities can manifest. They can be in firmware, it can be in implementation, it can be in the infrastructure. Network vulnerability scanners, like the ones I'm going to be talking about in this presentation, are very good usually at finding known security vulnerabilities that are in software applications, and sometimes if they have access to it in firmware and whatnot. So we've got penetration testing. Penetration testing is very often confused with network vulnerability scanning. And a lot of vendors will directly confuse the two terms because pen testing sounds cooler. But pen testing, this is subjective, but pen testing isn't necessarily cooler than network vulnerability scanning. It is more intense. Pen testing is simulating a cyber attack. And organizations with low security maturity are not ready for pen tests because in pen testing, you are simulating a cyber attack. And an organization with low security maturity is A, not going to be able to handle a pen test without devastation. And B, they're probably not going to be able to gain much from whatever is discovered through a pen test because a pen test will find way, 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 way too many problems. Pen testing is for organizations that have been network vulnerability scanning for quite some time, and pen testing is the only thing left to do that where they can find maybe some vulnerabilities that they haven't discovered that requires actually simulating more advanced cyber attacks instead of just scanning for network security vulnerabilities. So network vulnerability scanning is actually appropriate for organizations at all levels of security maturity, from zero to very high security maturity. And in fact, network vulnerability scanning is a very important way that an organization can build their security maturity over time. Whereas pen testing is only for orgs that have high security maturity. And then we got red teaming, which is a way to implement penetration testing where you are doing advanced campaigns that usually last weeks or sometimes months and various different types of activities where mainly the pen testers on a red team are trying to simulate specific, for instance, advanced persistent threat attacks that have been discovered recently. So they're trying to orchestrate that kind of thing. Sometimes red team engagements involve physical security as well. So, for instance, trying to physically break into an enterprise's office, that sort of thing. So that's basically what red teaming is. It's like it's pen testing, but more complicated and replicating specific advanced persistent threat attacks that we see in the wild. And we've got managed security services provider, or MSSP for short. So an MSSP is a very useful service for a lot of different types of enterprises. Uh, the main benefit of an MSSP is most enterprises do not have the resources to deploy their own SOC, their own security operations center. If you are a small or medium-sized enterprise, you probably don't have the resources to deploy your own SOC. And that's when a managed security services provider is very useful, because most MSSPs have SOCs, and their SOCs serve multiple enterprise clients. And you can have a trusted MSSP watch your network security constantly. But you do have to be very careful when you choose an MSP, because you are giving them full administrative access to your network. And a lot of supply chain attacks have hit enterprises through MSSPs. So I would advise, and I've done this before as I've worked as a consultant, I would advise that medium-sized enterprises find an MSSP and use one, but choose your MSSP very, very carefully. Be very get opinions from other people, from other enterprises, about MSPs and how useful they've been to them, how trustworthy. Then we got the SOC, Security Operations Center. So a Security Operations Center usually involves multiple security analysts or SOC analysts who sit at a desk that has like a ton of monitors, and each monitor has like different panels on it. And so every device in the enterprise network, even if it's in the cloud in a data center far away, should be getting logged and logged constantly. Everything that can be logged, application, network device, server, on premises, on the cloud, should be logged. And then the logs are fed into various security tools like IPS or SOAR, for instance. But then you got SIEM. So eventually this all gets routed through the SIEM, and the SIEM looks for patterns in the network, in the computer network logs from like a multitude of sources. And anything that looks like an abnormality based on the SIEM correlation rules is going to result in an alert that is generated and sent to the panel of a SOC analyst, and they are supposed to investigate the alerts and see if they are actually indicative of cyber attacks or not. And the reality of the industry is that SOC analysts get so many alerts that they endure what we call alert fatigue, and there's no way that they can actually address all of their alerts. And in fact, only a minority of the alerts are ever directly investigated by them. It's a real problem in network security these days. So one way that maybe we can make their jobs a little less stressful is to do network vulnerability scans, so we can have fewer vulnerabilities that cyber criminals could be trying to exploit. One thing that can be done. Okay. So now we've got some more terms to define. So we've got the C2E, which is the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures Database. And that's where all known security vulnerabilities generally end up. And not only are they publicly known security vulnerabilities, but they're ones that the vendors that they pertain to are ready to disclose and make public knowledge. A vendor might discover a vulnerability and they might keep that information to themselves for several months while they investigate it, and then it won't end up in the CVE until they've decided that they've developed a patch to address the vulnerability or some other way to mitigate it, or they decided to publish knowledge of the vulnerability without there being a patch or a direct mitigation strategy for it. So whenever you do discover a vulnerability, and it's a 0-day vulnerability, not a known one, it's your responsibility to responsibly disclose that vulnerability to the vendors that it impacts. Responsible disclosure means you don't go on LinkedIn or Twitter and say, hey, I found this so-and-so bug, and you make it public knowledge right away. You got to like go to like HackerOne or another website like that and learn about the vendor's bug bounty program or their responsible disclosure policies, and you got to report the vuln to them according to responsible disclosure. And the reason for that is if you make it public knowledge right away, a cyber criminal could pick up on it and take advantage before the vendors had something to do with it. So, and we got the CVSS. So when you do a vuln scan, for instance, anything that is associated with a record in the CVE will get like a CVA record reference. And then usually the outputs will also correlate to the CVSS, which is a way to score the criticality of a vulnerability. So a vulnerability that isn't very critical means that if an attacker exploits it, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. And high criticality means that exploiting it would do a lot of damage. And the CVSS uses a 0 to 10 scoring system for that. So when your organization is addressing the vulnerabilities that have been discovered in a vulnerability scan or a pen test, usually the vulnerabilities with a higher CVSS score should be addressed before the ones with a lower CVSS score. If you've got any vulnerabilities that have a CVSS score of like 9.2 or something like that, you got to address that ASAP, because that is a very critical vulnerability that could cause a lot of problems if attacker exploits it. So then you got patch management, which is the fine art of installing security and functionality patches for software as they become available. And that's applications, that's operating systems, that's firmware, that's software both on premises and software on the cloud, and sometimes software on employees' phones and stuff like that. And in an enterprise, patch management can actually get really, really complex. So we've got threat intel. Threat intel is knowledge that's discovered about cyber threats. So sometimes about malware, sometimes about new attack techniques and stuff like that. And there's a lot of different security solutions that use threat intel in order to function. Anti-malware being one such type of security solution, for instance. And then we've got supply chain attacks. So supply chain attacks are cyber attacks that go through an enterprise's supply chain to hit them. So a common type of supply chain attack goes through a managed security services provider to attack the enterprise, because a managed security services provider has administrative access to their clients' networks. And if a cyber criminal attacks an MSSP successfully, they could be attacking lots of different enterprises through there at the same time. Sometimes supply chain attacks can go through like software as a service or platform as a service. Any sort of interaction between like your enterprise network and some third-party computer network could be the means of a supply chain attack if the other network is considered to be a supplier that your company works with. And we've got API, which is application programming interface, and that's usually the kind of technology that a supply chain attack might be exploiting. So if you're not a computer programmer, an API is a type of technology that allows one application to communicate with a completely different software application. So I first started learning about APIs like 15 plus years ago, when I started to use software that could post a social media message to like Twitter and Facebook and all at the same time. So then that application would have to have Facebook APIs and Twitter APIs and whatnot. Another example of a very different sort of API implementation is DirectX in Windows. So DirectX is an application programming interface in Windows operating systems that is most often used in high-end PC gaming or in like high-end video editing to interface with the graphics card and the graphics in the operating system. So that's like, there's a ton of different kinds of APIs. Those are just like two examples, but there's usually some sort of API involved in a supply chain attack as well. So then we've got security posture. And to my OPIT enterprise cybersecurity students, I like to use the three little pigs analogy for security posture. So security posture is how strong an organization is when it comes to sustaining a cyber attack. So when I use the three little pigs example, I say, like, for instance, there are three little pigs. So one little pig built their house out of sticks, and the big bad wolf came and could easily blow down the house. So that house made out of sticks has very poor security posture. And on the other end is the little pig who is smart enough to build his house out of bricks. And the big bad wolf could not blow down that house. That's an example of something having very strong security posture. And shadow IT. Shadow IT is a huge problem in a lot of organizations. It's basically when an employee or contractor decides to use their own application for something rather than an application that is provided by their employer. And also the application interfaces with the enterprise network. So for instance, the enterprise might make Google Drive available to employees, and it's on the company's own Google Drive service. And the employee is like, I'd rather use Dropbox. So I'm going to connect my own Dropbox account to the enterprise security network. That would be an example of shadow IT. Or if you work on premises and you're like, I don't like the corporately mandated and administrated web browser, I would rather install my own web browser and use that. But because again, that's not being managed by the enterprise, that would be another example of shadow IT. And that could be a massive addition to a company's attack surface, because now there's all these applications that the enterprise cybersecurity apparatus might not be aware of that they could receive a cyber attack from. So I'm going to quickly go through some changes in the cyber threat landscape from 2020 to today. There's been a lot of changes. So there's been a significant growth in supply chain attacks due to multi-cloud, more software as a service, more managed security services providers, and greater complexity in enterprise networks, worse visibility, and more exposure. And then, as I mentioned, Gen AI related cyber threats, so that's more phishing due to automation of writing phishing emails, text messages, social media posts, more video and audio deep fakes, imitating trusted people, such as supervisors, bosses, co-workers, supplier representatives. And then the other big Gen AI threat, which I have yet to mention, is company secrets and keys being leaked through OpenAI and other Gen AI platforms. Businesses are more reliant than ever on vast supply chains to operate efficiently. However, this interdependence also has made supply chains a prime target for cyber criminals. Between 2021 and 2023, supply chain attacks surged by a staggering 431%, and projections indicate this number will continue to rise dramatically by 2025, according to a new cyber risk report by Cowbell. And that's what we've been seeing. And then in the Open Text 2024 Global Ransomware Survey, they write 40% of respondents have been impacted or don't know a ransomware attack originating from a software supply chain partner. Almost 3/4 of companies have experienced a ransomware attack this year, with more small and medium businesses than large enterprises having experienced an attack. Of the 48% of respondents who have experienced a ransomware attack, 73% have experienced a ransomware attack in the last year. Only 1/4 have not, and 2% don't know. Basically, as far as ransomware attacks are concerned, it's more of a matter of when than if. And if you check all kinds of like vendor reports on this stuff, such as the one that what are they called again? Anyway, a lot of different, there's a lot of data that out there that indicates that ransomware attacks now average ransoms like the equivalent in cryptocurrency of $1 million or more, and then all the expenses related to the attack could be a couple of $1 million more per attack. These attacks are very expensive, and the fact that smaller and medium-sized businesses are experiencing more frequent and worse enterprise attacks, more ransomware attacks than large enterprises, a small business is going to be very strongly impacted by a ransomware attack that ends up costing them a few $1,000,000. So now we get into the Gen AI related threats. So typically secrets are attributable to a number of sources such as API keys, security tokens, credentials, and more that provide access to resources such as Google, GitHub, and AWS. That was the case again this year with one notable addition to the list of top sources of leaked secrets, OpenAI, the artificial intelligence startup behind ChatGPT. OpenAI alone accounted for 19% of all leaked secrets on the PyPL platform in 2023, as well as 18% on the Rudy Gems platform. This is interfacing directly with software. Reversing Labs researchers discovered leaked OpenAI API tokens, so that gives access to an API basically, accounted for almost all of that, reflecting the growing use and popularity of OpenAI's ChatGPT AI chatbot. As with the discovery of more than 1,500 leaked API tokens on the Hugging Face machine learning platform, the leaks of OpenAI's API tokens could expose sensitive files, images, and AI models for organizations with leaked tokens, according to Reversing Labs. So back to the OpenText 2024 Global Ransomware Survey. So respondents experienced more phishing attacks due to the increased use of AI, especially amongst those who have experienced a ransomware attack. More than half, so 55% of respondents, said that their company is more at risk of suffering a ransomware attack because of the increased use of AI among threat actors. Almost half, that's 45% of respondents, have observed an increase in phishing attacks due to the increased use of AI. Of those who experienced a ransomware attack, 69% have observed an increase in phishing attacks due to the increased AI usage. And so Gen AI is being used by cyber criminals for phishing, which is often an entry point for ransomware attacks. But the big thing that really made enterprise ransomware attacks explode in frequency and devastation was the advent of cryptocurrency. So I actually worked in IT before the advent of cryptocurrency, like back in 2007, 2008, and ransomware did exist back then, but it was way less common, and it usually targeted consumers and instead of enterprises, and cyber criminals would demand usually a credit card number. So I'd be in the tech support call center and there'd be cubicles all around me, and all the time I'd overhear my colleagues saying, no, I beg of you, please don't tell them your credit card number. But ransomware attacks were still a lot less common back then. And then cryptocurrency launched with Bitcoin in 2009 and a lot of different cryptocurrencies to follow after that. And if you ask people like computer scientist Nicholas Weaver, for instance, that is what made ransomware attacks really explode in intensity and frequency and targeting enterprises more, because now they could demand ransoms in a way that is much more difficult for law enforcement to investigate than a credit card transaction or a check being sent through the mail, for instance. So we have cryptocurrency largely to thank for ransomware attacks being so common. And now we got Gen AI to thank for phishing attacks being so much more destructive as an entry point for ransomware attacks. So all these things that, you know, the tech bros in Silicon Valley who have drunk the Kool-Aid and are honestly, in my opinion, assholes that I'd rather not associate with anymore. All the stuff that they're hyped about that they think is going to change the world positively has actually had a very detrimental effect. So we got cryptocurrency, which is mainly a conduit for crime. And then we got Gen AI, which is again a conduit for crime and environmental destruction. So way to go, Sam Altman and Satoshi, whatever his name is. So there we go. You got me being grumpy and cranky. Now is the part of the presentation where I actually talk more about network vulnerability scanning. So I was actually an employee of Hack the Box. I wasn't like, oh, I'm in the Hack the Box community. I was on the inside, I was an employee. I co-wrote the Pen Tester Blueprint, which is, it might be the best-selling book on pen testing ever written. I've written a whole book on my own about cloud vulnerability, sorry, cloud pen testing. It's really cloud vulnerability scanning, to be honest with you. I've been on a lot of red team engagements. I cannot talk about them very much because of NDAs, but usually my role would be to help with the reporting. And I've given a lot of different network vulnerability scanners a try over the years, some more than others. So one is Burp Suite, and Burp Suite is a proprietary network vulnerability scanner. And I think it's generally pretty good if you can afford it. It can be kind of technically complicated, and sometimes people get the best use out of Burp Suite if they're more advanced, have more experience with network vulnerability scanning. Burp Suite doesn't always automatically find the entirety of the network. But I mean, as far as proprietary network vulnerability scanners go, it's generally very good. They've got OWASP Zap, which is I think it's FOSS, I think it's open source. If it's not open source, then it's proprietary freeware. But OWASP Zap is really best at scanning web applications and websites, and it's free, and it's pretty good for scanning websites for vulnerabilities. It's not good at full discovery of the entire network or anything like that. And it does have kind of limited functionality, but it's very accessible to newcomers. Nmap is not really a network vulnerability scanner per se, but it's a very useful tool in network vulnerability scanning. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Nmap already, but if you're not, it's a really cool free and open source application that's been around for at least 20 years or more in some form or another. People have developed all kinds of plugins for it that are very useful. You can visualize your network, anything that you have access to through Nmap, you can visualize it. You can get all kinds of data for what a network consists of technologically. It's a great way to, usually when it comes to network vulnerability scanning, Nmap would be used to discover network assets to vulnerability scan. So that's where it's useful. And there are plugins to facilitate that as well. But on its own, without plugins, Nmap is more of a general network discovery tool than a network vulnerability scanner. So then we got GFI LangGuard, and like QualisGuard, it's possible in a lot of cloud networks like Azure and AWS, for instance, to pay for and deploy GFI LangGuard directly through your cloud platform. I haven't honestly used it very much, but it's very expensive and it's got a lot of functionality. It's usually better at scanning, even though they will advertise that it's great for multi-cloud networks. It's usually best for network vulnerability scanning the cloud network that you bought the service with. And I would say the same about QualisGuard. So it's very much your mileage may vary sort of thing. And then we got Nessus, which might be the first network vulnerability scanner ever. I might be wrong about that. But if it's not the first network vulnerability scanner, it's one of the first network vulnerability scanners. And the first version of Nessus debuted in 1998. And it's kept going and evolving since then. So it's like the old grandpa of network vulnerability scanners, but of course it's always being updated with new features and new functionality. And especially the older offensive cybersecurity practitioners really swear by it. And then we got OpenVAS, which is basically like the FOSS version of Nessus. It doesn't have quite as many features, as Nessus, but it uses the same language for developing exploits and stuff like that. And it can be a good alternative to Nessus as well. And they've got Metasploit framework, which we'll hear about a lot. And they've got a free version and they've got a paid version. The paid version can be quite expensive, but the paid version, it's much easier to automate vulnerability scans and it has more functionality. You might want to try the free version first though. And then of course, there's the first party vuln scanners that are built directly into AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and other platforms, cloud platforms as well. So I mentioned some third-party network vulnerability scanners that you could buy directly through your cloud platform. There's also Amazon's own and Microsoft's own and Google's own, etc. And I generally find that they, even though they advertise that they're good for multi-cloud, they're really best for, you know, the one that AWS provides for scanning AWS, for instance. And then we've got Travis ASM. And I would really like you to try a free scan with Travis ASM, and you can arrange that by emailing me. I'll give you my email address again near the end of the presentation. But I would recommend having more than one network vulnerability scanner. Sometimes it can be good to have that redundancy because of the different threat intelligence sources and different features. But Travis does have some features that make it stand out from the others. So these are some of the differentiating features of Travis ASM. So Travis ASM features automated asset discovery for EASM, External Attack Surface Management. So it makes full network vault visibility easier without human practitioners having to do a lot of configuration work, even in multi-cloud, even with MSSPs, and even if a lot of IP addresses are unknown to the humans. It's really good if you configure it the right way at discovering shadow IT and forgotten assets. It scans for API key leaks. It's crucial for discovering, which is crucial for discovering supply chain vulnerabilities, which is a growing problem these days. It's got Google dorking features. So Google dorking is a whole type of methodology for seeing what cyber criminals could discover about your enterprise by using Google. If you engage in the Google dorking features included with Travis, you can discover what it is about your network that is being leaked through Google in various ways. So this is my personal opinion, but Google's current prioritizing of Gemini and Gen AI summaries, plus how they prioritize ads over organic search results since 2019, may mean that security is less of a priority and privacy is much less of a priority to them. In my personal opinion, I must emphasize that for legal purposes. So Google dorking capabilities are now more important than ever before, because a lot of information about your enterprise could be being leaked through Google now. And Google dorking is using, as I said, using advanced search operators to discover publicly accessible sensitive information. Kind of like conceptually similar to using Shodan, I guess. So then we got a lot of vulnerability scanners can conduct automated scans, but automated scans in Travis ASM take less work to configure. Scanning parameters and configurations can be modified with a lot less work. So I have worked on pen testing engagements, but I've also had students at OPIT who work as pen testers and some that work as SOC analysts. And so the pen tester and SOC analyst anecdotes in my personal experience, the general consensus is while vulnerability scans are less destructive than pen tests, Travis's scans are actually less destructive than other vulnerability scanning platforms on average. So it's more practical to, if you're going to have network vulnerability scans deployed while the production network is really busy, while, you know, it's, say your workplace is 9 to 5, it's in the middle of a 9 to 5 workday, for instance. Travis is a great choice for that because you can deploy scans without disrupting what they're doing really badly. Some scanners are more disruptive and would be better to activate when your production network isn't being used as much, for instance. And then, of course, pen testing is the most disruptive. So, yeah. So, with Travis, you only pay for successful scans. So you can easily see all scans ever conducted with Travis ASM in one dashboard. You can see a whole complex multi-cloud network full of scanning. There's no, as I said, there's no reason to stop using free and open source OpenVAS, Wireshark, Nmap, OWASP, Zap, freeware Metasploit framework, because you can compare how many vulnerabilities you can find with those to Travis ASM. And you can see if using different vuln scanners and threat intel produces different results. We are really confident in Travis ASM, so that's why I'm able to offer a free scan that is obligation free as well. And your enterprise or MSSP can make decisions about phone scanning strategy over time based on the results seen. And I would recommend, if even if you decide to go for Travis ASM in the long term, that you still keep some other phone scanners and use them as well. So as I said, I can arrange a free of charge and obligation free scan. And as I said, so this is my email address. Please, please, please email me to arrange for a free Travis ASM scan. There's nothing to sign, no contracts, no obligations if you do so. And I do have my Twitch streaming that I am starting tomorrow. So please share the word about that. So those are the URLs. You can find me on Twitch TV. And I'll be answering your enterprise cybersecurity questions while I play video games. But right now, I will be answering your network vulnerability related questions for the last half hour of this presentation. So because this isn't my Twitch thing, I will be answering your network vulnerability related questions free of charge. So go ahead, feel free to ask me any questions you might have. Yeah. Go ahead, I'm giving the floor to you. Feel free to ask me any questions you might have. Okay, I guess there aren't any questions then. So in the chat, I'm going to put my email address again. Please, please, please feel free to ask me to arrange a free scan. I would be happy to provide that for you. Please note my email address. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, so that's, take note of my email address. Feel free to contact me. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.